Hey nerds, Jess here. In this video, I'm going to go over how to make your website AI search ready. And this is made especially for local service-based businesses. So let's just get into it. So first, why does this matter now? I have a lot of people that are always, really worried about search and how they show up in Google, but a lot of people don't understand that people are using AI now for even local based businesses. So AI is your website's first reader. As we move into ChatGPT and voice assistants and, being voice ready, voice search ready, which is something that I've been talking about for a very long time, that's going to be all based on how your website is able to be crawled by these crawlers and now the AI crawlers. So if your website is not ready, it will be completely invisible. And the only way you're going to get traffic is if you have somebody go directly to that site. So if you have a business card and you have a QR code and somebody scans it and goes to your website, or if they find you on social media and they click a link, or if you pay. Obviously, that gets really costly. It takes a lot of time. So if you can show up organically just by people searching for what you're offering, that's going to be a lot cheaper for you later on, and also increases your relevancy so that when you go into doing ads and things like that, it'll be a lot cheaper for you. So I'm going to talk about how this differs from SEO and how going forward you can make sure that you're putting your time to making your website better and more optimized, making sure that you're actually doing things that are going to count towards AI searchability, which could be GEO, the LLM search, AIO. It's going by all kinds of different names. But I know that the people that I'm talking to specifically only know AI or ChatGPT. So if you hear the other terms, this is basically what I'm talking about. So most service-based businesses look great. Like, we've now learned how to make websites. You've probably made one on Wix or Squarespace, or you hired your kid or somebody that's young to make a website for you, and it looks great. However, it may use a lot of like images and things like that we're going to talk about. And you want your website to not only look great, but be crawlable and be able to be seen by Google and these AIs moving forward. So when a LLM or AI looks at your website, and including Google, it doesn't see the design, the branding, the layout. It just sees raw text and like the HTML or the code behind it. So you want to make sure that anything that you want the systems to know about you is able to be read. And it's really easy to tell if something is able to be read is if you were to kind of drag and drop your mouse and it highlights words, and that means, okay, it's actual text. But if I were to use a image, for example, I can't highlight this image in any way. So that's something you don't want like crucial text to be in, because it's not actually going to be read. So the four things that we're going to talk about are the hook layer, the clarity layer, the trust layer, and the crawl layer that you need to have in your website to make it AI searchable and visible. So first, the hook layer. This is the first 150 to 300 words in your page, because it goes by each page, that will decide everything. So in these 300 words, you need to say what you do, who it's for, the outcome that you deliver, the problem that you solve, and why your approach is different. Now, if this is a great hook, then the AI will continue to read the rest of your page. But otherwise, especially in a research phase, it's just going to scan like a bunch of sites and just scroll through those 150 to 300 words and decide, is this a page that I should continue to read down, or is it junk? Is it like everything else I've read? So we're going to go over how we can make this, really like tasteful and something that the AIs want to continue to read. So again, like I said, make sure pretty Canva images don't hold all of the content that this should be. You shouldn't have your packages, your pricing, your service lists, and your process flows, anything like that in pretty Canva images if you want the AI to be able to read it, because it's not going to be able to read it. So a lot of people will say, well, if I load this in the ChatGPT and say transcribe, it can read it. But they're not going to do this, especially again in the research phase. If you're not commanding it explicitly to do that, it's not going to waste tokens, currency, basically money, electricity to convert what you put in an image. So again, why is this a problem? AI cannot reliably decipher images. If you haven't put AI and put had AI make an image, you'll see that it kind of doesn't get the characters right all the time. So again, we just want to make things as simple and as cheap to use, because as you can see, hidden text can increase token costs. So what a token is it allows these AIs to process information. It's processing power or electricity. So you want your content to be as cheap as possible for these machines to read. And especially like if you have large chunks or complex graphics, things like that, it's not advantageous for the AI to use that information. They can just go to another website that has easier information to read. So when you do this, your best information becomes invisible, and it's just, you wasted all your time on nothing, essentially. So you made it pretty but invisible. So we want to make sure that you take all of that, good resource time and put it into something that's actually going to help you. All right. So the clarity layer, this is a scannable spine. So you want to think of like a book, a book cover. It should have like the information, the table of contents, things like that. So after you get that hook layer, you're going to have the spine, which should be the meat and potatoes of your either blog or page, whatever that is. So we want to have bulleted service lists, step-by-step process instructions. Again, all that should be readable in text for these AIs. You should have what's included breakdown, what the different packages outlined are plainly, the specific problems that you solve, a clear definition of who you work best with, because you want to think on the other end, like this AI has probably been talking to this person and knows who they are. So when they say, hey, I want a plumber in my area, they probably know, what their kind of income level is, what location they're around. So you want to make sure that you match all of these specific things for your ideal customer, so that when an AI is dealing with your ideal customer, that they send them directly to you. And you want a disclosure of who isn't a good fit. So if you don't want emergency fixes, you want to put in there that, you have a longer wait time or something. It just depends on basically what it is. All right, so structuring for content. So these are the different structures that I recommend. So bulleted lists, process steps, short paragraphs, tables, clear sections, and specific details that the AI can pull from, and really like it has zero ambiguity between each piece of information that you present, and shows that, that you are an authoritative figure. All right, so this is just proof that shows that they love structured data. So if you look at Google searches, about 12% of searches have tables in the content, whereas ChatGPT citations have about 30% of citations in the content that they're referring. So this means it is 2.3 times more likely that you're going to show up as a result in ChatGPT than Google if you have a table of contents. And if you haven't been noticing, Google is going more towards the ChatGPT model and modeling what they're doing, because people are really happy with the results of ChatGPT. So while it's 12% now, I can see in the future that it's going to be more, because they're just going to be moving more towards what Chat is doing, basically. So these are things you want to build pages for to gain control in your category. So competitor comparison pages. So find out who your competitors are and what makes you different from them. Maybe you have a larger service area. Maybe you have a larger team. Maybe you have a smaller team. Maybe you're more dedicated and, you're more specialized versus, you're a plumber and a roofer and a solar and whatever, and just find out what's different between you, and have a page that represents that. Have a best, in your location, best plumber page, have your headlines tell that you are the best, world renowned, world class, whatever, have alternatives to X. So it really, again, depends on who your competitors are. You can also have, competitor versus me pages, just depending on what you want to have. Basically, if you haven't seen in my, presentation, I also have these little quotes, so you can go back and look at these. But at the end, I'll get you access to a resource doc that has prompts for ChatGPT to help you through all of this as well, because I know it's a lot. So layer 3, the trust layer. So we want to make sure that your reviews are in clean text. So if you have an embed from Google, that's perfect. If you have screenshots, you're going to want to also have them in text form. You want to have your local business information. So this means people should know exactly where you are and who you work with, which is the hook layer. But you want to make sure that it is consistent across your entire website, that you have, if you have an address, you include your address, your phone number, your service area, so that it is not confusing who you work with. So have an about clarity, like who is your team? What is the history of your team? How long have you been working? What is your expertise? Do you have any credentials? You want to make sure that you include any certifications, licenses, awards, etc., because this just increases your authority in the space. You want to have external references if you have any. Do you have any press releases, case studies? Do you do things in the community? Things like that. You want to make sure that that is all on your website, or at least posted on your social, which is something that we'll talk about in a little bit. Again, blog posts with your expertise. Do not just have how-tos. You should have explicit, like, do you have frameworks, methods? What are clear differentiators between you and the alternatives? Before, with SEO, you could just be super generic, and it wasn't something that I recommended to people, because before we still had expertise as a factor in Google. And that is something that I know I saw personally when I had clients that actually used that, and they used their expertise and they did opinion articles and things like that. It really helped them stand out. But a lot of SEOs still use the really generic, generic things. So again, make sure you say, like, what is the real process step? What are the, outcomes that you have? What makes your experience different than others? Do not just feed it generic information. Don't just have like top 5 tips. You want to have like original research, case studies, proprietary data, location-based data, specific insights that you've gained, detailed behind the scenes. So, doing videos, things like that, talking about what other clients have gone through, things like that, expert opinions. So you can pair up with people that are, kind of in your industry or complementary, and that'll help them as well. Okay, so the proof layer. So this is, again, the expertise. So proprietary data, case studies, behind the scene processes, frameworks, your own insights. So make sure you have those. Again, if you're not sure, I have a doc that helps you go through the process as well. So this is why it's also important that you should, it depends on what service you're in, that you want to, if it makes sense, to have a YouTube, Reddit, be in the niche forums, have a LinkedIn, use different platforms like podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, anything that you're going to use consistently, to show that you are an authority in the space. Because these LLMs, if they like your content, then they'll also look at your social media and they'll see what followers have to say about you. And depending on, what kind of person that follower is or what they say, it could increase your chances as well, for showing up for search and things like that. So the crawl layer, this is basically how your website is put together. You want to make sure that you're not using a slow host. You don't have hidden accordions or hidden things that are, blocking the information that you want to be indexed. Make sure that you're indexed on Bing. People don't use Bing, but ChatGPT and other AI tools do, because it's kind of cheaper for them to use. And also Google doesn't want Chat to use Google because they have their own system with Gemini. So just some things to think of. You want to make sure that you're indexing everywhere. Make sure you don't have like too much JavaScript, or it's like a very heavy website, or, of course, be mobile friendly. And just if you have too much dynamic content that isn't like loading on the page and it's using, Ajax, which you may not know what that means, but basically you just want to make sure that you have an individual page for each different set of information that you have. You don't want it to just change and it be the same URL, because that's not going to show the difference and changes on the website. All right, so again, kind of going over the technical information, run out of time, but we want to make sure that we have page relationships, topic clustering, and again, just a review of the 6 killers that I see for a lot of service-based websites. So you want to make sure that you avoid those types of things. So this is just our process to go through and fix the website. So if you're interested in working with us, this is what it would look like. And also, like I said, I want you to comment that you like this, or that you want the comment nerd GPT, and I'll send you the resource doc that has the different information on how to use these prompts and make sure that your website is AI visible. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll talk to you soon.